I'd like to present to you Fireside Chat with Gabriel Friedlander, who founded Get Wizer in early 2019 with a mission to make basic security awareness training free for everyone. Since then, Wizer has been rapidly growing with over 3,000 organizations sign up for their free training. And in 2020, it partnered with several local counties to offer free citizen training. Gabriel believed that in this day and age, security awareness should be a basic human skill. Prior to founding Wizer, Gabriel was the co-founder of ObserveIT, acquired by ProofPoint, a company specializing in detection and prevention of insider threats. Gabriel is also the co-author of the book Insider Threat Program, Your 90 Days Plan. For more than a decade, Gabriel researched the insider threat and trained numerous organizations on how to avoid and mitigate the risk it possesses. I hope you enjoy it. Kick it off, and then people will probably trickle in as soon as they, I've been doing this now weekly. I encourage people to... And so welcome to the New York Information Security Meetup / the Cyber Guild. I've been doing this weekly, and I have the great pleasure to introduce Gabby Friedlander, right? The founder and CEO of Wizer, and a past co-founder and CTO, right, for ObserveIT. Exactly. Is it ObserveIT or ObserveIT?
Oh, that's it's still debatable. You're now touching until the end, we were debating if it's So I came up with the name. The idea was ObserveIT, but it flew better on the tongue, just observe it. So originally it was ObserveIT, and ended up everybody using ObserveIT, and I just went with the flow. So I guess ObserveIT.
Well, I think just because the IT is capitalized, just the first inclination was to just call it ObserveIT, but
that was the intent.
Oh, okay. So that's
so it started with observing the IT, but it also actually worked well with insider threat, observe insider threat, which is eventually what we did. So it was actually a cool name. It is
okay.
Cool.
So IT actually stands for insider threat, then, not like information technology.
Yeah. Well, it started with information technology, but then we decided that it's insider threat, which is what we did.
I always thought that names, make a difference, but I don't think so. There's some companies with horrible names that are doing well. So interesting. So first of all, I have to say that I have greatest appreciation to, for entrepreneurs like yourself. I think that people don't realize how tough it is to found a company, what you go through. Definitely. They only see the success. And so we'll talk a bit about that. I mean, you founded ObserveIT or ObserveIT in 2007. And, just recently, about 2 years ago, you sold that to ProofPoint. So we'll talk about that journey. Why don't we get started, and then just, if you don't mind, just give us a kind of a tidbit about you, like how you got to where you are today. What's your history like, where you grew up, and maybe some things nobody knows about you. Maybe kind of so you can surprise everybody.
Well, originally I'm from Israel, so that's my accent. I grew up in Israel. In a place called Beersheba, and then I moved to Tel Aviv. It's a big hub for startups. I love that vibe that is in Israel. Like any other Israeli, I went to the army, and I was not a soldier in the field. I was in the intelligence, 3 years, and then I moved on to college. My dad was a biology professor. That was like a natural progress for me. However, being a rebel, I decided to quit after a year and start my entrepreneur life. One of the things that I usually tell, that's at least what I believe in, is that in order to be entrepreneur, it's probably better to start early, because you don't really have a lot to lose in terms of, you still don't have kids, a mortgage. So that sort of was my take on things. And I said, I think this is the best time now for me to start. I don't know if this was the right thing to do back then, but it turned out good. I could have easily have failed. So I'm not suggesting for everyone to do the same, but it worked well for me. I had my first company. that we built a solution for we're talking about like almost 20 years ago. So back then it was, from a technology point of view, we're talking about ASP, even before the .NET. And I didn't know anything about programming, but I just decided that, I want to get into that business. So I learned as we go, and I developed a site for basically real estate for rental and selling houses and basically real estate. It went really bad. It didn't work out. I won't go through all of that. Lost some money there, obviously. And then I had to pay back my debt. I moved back then to Tel Aviv, and I worked as a CTO for a website that developed basically a website for kids. It was called Yo-Yo back then. So during those 2 years, I obviously paid back my debt, and then I returned to being an entrepreneur. So basically, out of my entire career, I think only 2 years I was an employee, and it was mainly to just pay back what I lost in my first business. Then I started a consultancy business, and after that, actually in parallel, I started a mobile company that we created mobile games. And you have to remember, this is like before the days of the iPhone. So we're talking about flip phones. So back then, it was very new to have cloud and stuff like that, but we developed a mobile backup solution. And we had an agreement with a revenue share agreement with one of the providers in Israel. So that turned out to be very successful for us. And the company grew, and then iPhone came in, and all of those smartphones, and it really made that thing obsolete. And basically then I started ObserveIT. So that's sort of like, a very quick on my
now
of my career.
What's interesting is, you hear about insider threat. I mean, but you found it back in 2007.
And that was hard. So it's such a you believe in something because back then, remember, I was still a consultant, and the idea of ObserveIT came around because whenever they called me in, it was usually to troubleshoot things that were not obvious. And I used to ask, okay, so who did what? Who was the last one to touch that server? What did they do? And the logs were not enough. They were either just saying administrator did something, or they were error logs. They didn't really tell, what happened and who logged in and what did they do. So I came up with that idea of, why don't we put sort of like a security camera on the servers? That was sort of like a big brother on the server, and we can track everything that anyone did. So that was the original idea. And we started to go out and try to sell this. It made a lot of sense, but we had a lot of pushback exactly because of what you said. People were like, look, we understand the value of this. There's no doubt about it, but it's against our culture. So a lot of our potential customers at the beginning were just pushing back because they don't want to upset, their employees. They trust them. So that was a very, very hard sell. And we had to be creative and to find ways to work around them. And one of the ways we found that instead of looking internally, we said, okay, let's look at your remote vendors, because a lot of those companies had remote vendors coming in. And we basically said, okay, you are all fine, but let's look at the vendors, what they're doing. Everybody was like, yeah, that's great. They're always causing the problem. And when you go back and look at the recording, honestly, they were hardly ever the problem. Like, it was that internal team that caused problems. So, and eventually they understood the value of that, and they started to trickle that in. But it was far from like just pitch and sell. Even though the solution was great, people, and that's what was so hard about it, because when you talk to people about it, they get it, they understand there is a need. But then the pushback comes from something that you didn't even think of. So you have to navigate, around those obstacles and figure out how to continue.
Yeah, that's super interesting. And what's interesting as well is that you uncover a need throughout consulting and almost like just from being, in the field and realizing that a lot of the, incidents are actually from inside, inside our employees. And it's also interesting that, this whole notion about, we trust our employees. We don't want to upset them. I guess that's the thing of the past. I think now, companies are putting, methods in place, and therefore that's why ProofPoint. So now fast forward like 2007, right? So how big were you? And I know you raised some funding like a couple of times. How big were you right before you got acquired by ProofPoint? And maybe, I don't know how much you can share, but going through an acquisition is probably super stressful. Like you're basically, you have your whole life, kind of like life project on hold. And I don't know if you can walk us through that process of, who called you first, or what was the whole process, and the due diligence process and so on. Maybe you can walk me through that. That'd be great.
Yeah, well, I'll give you some background a little bit. So I think it's important. So we bootstrapped ObserveIT for the first. So when we went to investors and we said, look, we have the solution, they didn't want to invest in us. So there was a huge pushback, but we were still selling. So we were like, let's bootstrap this. So we bootstrapped the company for about 7 years, and we got it to about $10 million in revenues with hardly any investment at all. It was just, a bit from friends and family, and our friends and family were not rich. So it was, small amount of money, but we still were able to build the company, and that attracted a lot of investors. We picked Bain Capital. That's why I live now in Boston. They moved me here, and they were really intrigued by, how a company out of Israel is selling all over the world. And we had a lot of transactions back then. And they assumed, rightfully so, that, if they pour money into this can grow. So they invested. Our round A, like I said, it was about 7 years later. It was about like $20-30 million. I don't remember exactly the number. And things obviously changed. The first part, I would say, was the most fun part, because building something from nothing is what I enjoy. Once you have a lot of money in, execution is the name of the game. You cannot zigzag anymore as fast. You already have your product market fit. Everything is working. Now you just need to pour money. So we brought a management team, an American management team that knew how to operate and knew how to execute. And we grew and grew and grew significantly eventually, and to the tens of millions of dollars of revenues. And you always think, and look, we're talking about a long process, right? Like we had our ups and downs in between. That by itself can be like a whole hour discussion at least. But you never really think about this, and you never really call anyone, because it doesn't work like that. You're not looking to be bought. You hope to, for a good outcome, but you don't go calling for buyers, because that really, on the one hand, it doesn't look good. It reduces the value of the company. And usually what happens, it's just a natural progress. It could be either that company started as a customer, even as a cold call, and it's a relationship that evolves into this. So it's really different from what you see in the movies or Silicon Valley, where you get a call and, you're being bought and how much and all of that. It's just a natural, you don't believe it at the beginning because, you heard it in the past and it didn't work out, and it did work out and all of that. So it's something that just gradually happens. But when you do go to the due diligence, it happens fast. Like for us, it was like, a month or 3 months max, I think. From the time that there was real interest to the time that we were purchased, because of the due diligence and all of that. But obviously that was a happy outcome for all of us.
So what happens? Like, do they send you a check? How does the company get transferred? Like, did you break a champagne or what's the process of? Because
you do like that picture and all of that. But eventually, you have to deal with taxes. So the money goes to a paying agent, and it takes time until you actually see the money in your bank. So, you're getting used to it. It's not like one day, there's a lot of money in the bank. So it's
So what's
everything
the
is gradual. Everything, takes time.
yeah,
It's
so did
not
you do
like,
anything frivolous that you wanted to do and you never had a chance and you could only do that after you
you
sold the
know
company?
what? No, not really. I sound boring, but I love the way I lived before, and I used to go on vacations and take my family everywhere. So at the end of the day, it gives you, you're relaxed. It gives you, for example, one big thing that has changed for me is that I'm able to build Wizer, which we'll talk about later, my new company, without needing any investors. So for me, that's a huge, something that I probably couldn't have done if I hadn't, exited at ObserveIT to do it just, self-funded. But other than that, look, you have the house that how many rooms can you have? Like how many, at the end of the day, your kids go to school, come back, you have your day to day. And the biggest questions really is what do you do next? And I think that's something that people don't realize, because after you sell your company and you have money, now the question is, because you were an employee in your own company, you worked. So do you become an investor? Do you start something new? And by the way, before Wizer, I tried to go really like 180 degree in a different direction. I started a fashion app company, which went really bad, by the way. I learned a lot from that, consumer markets, and I took
Why
what I
fashion?
learned
That's fascinating.
because the things that I looked at it is you want. Here's my line of thought, and don't learn from this, by the way. I thought it's true, but it's not. So I was saying to myself, okay, let's pick a huge market, right? So fashion, we're talking about, security market is like, I don't know, 100 billion or whatever. We're talking about fashion market like, 3 trillion. So we're talking about a huge market. It was rapidly evolving even today, for fast fashion and Instagram and TikTok and everything that is happening. So for me, it was, okay, we're talking about a huge market, evolving rapidly, brick and mortar is closing down, things are moving online. Even if we get it wrong, we can navigate there. So it's big enough for us to navigate and fix what we don't understand, because you can make money out of it. Well, that's wrong. And the way I looked at it is, we're talking about building a mobile app. So I'll bring people that understand in fashion. I understand in development. I understand in business. I can apply the same techniques, the things that I know. I know business development. I'll do partnerships. But again, just to give you one example, when you're in B2B and you're trying to figure out if you have a product market fit, and you're asking your customers, hey, what do you think about this solution? And the customer is usually telling you the truth. They're saying, look, I don't need it, or it's too expensive. Usually they push back in B2B. They're actually pretty honest. In B2C, you show an app to a millennial. They're like, wow, this is really cool. So like, everything is cool. Every new app is cool. Of course I would use it. They don't pay for apps, right? You have to remember, I'll download it, I'll try, they're positive. So you have a concept, and I interviewed like tons of people, like, 300 fashionistas and others, and I was showing them the app, and that this is like the coolest thing ever. But at the end of the day, they're not really buying it. So you cannot just, take the things that you learn in B2B and apply it to B2C. However, with Wizer, I did take a little bit from both, worlds, and I took the security awareness space, and I figured out I can consumerize it because it's too much enterprise. So I think I learned a lot in the consumer market, and I'm taking what I'm learning. I don't feel that I failed if I use what I learned and I apply it somewhere else. But it definitely was, I got a slap, a big slap, thinking that I can do it all, and nope.
Hey, so you basically you're saying you failed more than once, right? So you failed in the past, and then you failed again, and then. So tell me about Wizer, and how you decided to where do you saw the gap? Why did you decide to create a company? You have a freemium model, right, that you're currently using. Maybe talk to me about that. Why you decided to to use that model, and then talk to me about your what your plans are to for the company to expand and potentially also make some money after. I'm assuming that you're in it for the money as well.
Yeah, sure. So it's a freemium model, but we also have a paid version. We're going to talk about it in a second. So you can either come up with something new. So ObserveIT was like a totally new thing, and like you said, nobody really understood what Insider Thread back then was, or wanted even to hear about it, and that's a hard journey. I wasn't willing to go through that journey again. It's like very, very hard, and I was better with competition. So I decided to go to a market that doesn't have to be opened up, a market that is huge. We're talking about security awarenesses in security space. It's probably one of the biggest markets out there. It's definitely saturated. There's a lot of competition over there, but that something that I'm not afraid of. When I looked at my competitors, and some of them have 30,000 customers, and you're thinking to yourself, okay, that's a lot of customers. How can I break in? But when you think, who needs security awareness? And then you realize that even mom and pop shops now
everybody, right?
Everybody. So just the US alone has like 3 million businesses, right? So for me, it was, they haven't even scratched the surface. Like there's so many more to sell to. So we have a big market. I understand this space, unlike fashion. And I can navigate in this space. And what I felt the gap is that they're not approaching their customers, my competitors, as if they were consumers, but the actual people that are watching those security awareness videos are employees, right? They're not the IT people. They also, but the majority of the people are just employees, and employees basically are consumers, right? There's like, they use social media apps. They have a short attention span. They don't have time for this. They're distracted all day long. You're getting about every 5 minutes, you're distracted with something, whether it's a notification. So between a short attention span and being distracted all the time and living on your mobile versus on your desktop, I just felt that what's out there right now is not doing justice to actually teach people about security. So I took what I learned about the consumer market, and I decided that we're going to go in, we're going to do videos that are short and to the point. So all our videos are 1 minute long. Very similar to the concept of Instagram stories and TikTok and all of that. You can flip through them quickly. We developed it mobile first. We also have the desktop version, but we took in mind that people are probably on their desktop more. We also made it personal. So a lot of the topics cover things that people can relate to, because a lot of the security awareness solutions out there talk about the company, right? I feel it's a little bit selfish, help us protect us, the company. But if you want people to change their behavior, you want to make it personal. So we have things like, we talk about job scams, we talk about fake checks, a lot of things that people can relate to. We use language that is easier for the average person to relate to. For example, for the average person, data breach is far-fetched. What is a data breach for, like, my mom? But getting scammed or conned, that's something she can relate to. She probably even knows somebody that was conned. I'm not sure that she knows somebody that was data breached. So it's taking that, language, bringing it down, conversational language, making it personal. And we see people love it, and they, learn from that. And eventually they apply, because it's the same techniques. Those phishing emails, whether a job scam or it's, wire fraud, use the same techniques exactly. It's basically fooling the person to think that it came from somebody trustworthy and so forth. Moving to that free and how do we make money, that again goes with the concept of consumerizing it. When you think about apps, you download the app, you don't pay anything. So how do apps make money? Well, they're add-ons. So it's the same concept. People are like, how do you sell for free? No, we don't sell for free. Well, we have the basic for free.
Add-ons?
We have add-ons.
Or I think they sell your information. I mean, that's
yeah. So we don't sell information, but we do eventually hope that a part of them will convert to the boost version. But the free version is truly free. We're talking about a solution that doesn't make you feel that, after you started to use it, there's a catch. So it's unlimited in the amount of users. We cover the entire security awareness space. So you have all the 20 or something videos that cover things ranging from mobile security, passwords, even wire fraud. All of that is in the security awareness. It comes with a learning management system that's also free that we developed. You can track the employees, they get reminders. And then for companies that need more than that, for example, regulations like HIPAA, GDPR, and stuff like that, or they need phishing simulation or gamification, basically taking it up a notch, then we have the Boost version. And it proves itself because if you think about from a go-to-market perspective, and again, going back to how you structure a business, you build a product, but that's not enough. You have to figure out, how do I get it, out there? And the cost per lead is tremendous today. It's very, very expensive to get someone to even pay attention to what you have to say. So instead of paying Facebook, Google, LinkedIn for ads, we decided to invest in really good content that we provide for free. And word of mouth, people appreciate it. And as they appreciate it, the word gets out there. So within the first year, we have over 5,000 organizations that are using Wizer, which is tremendous. Wow. And even if you think about it, even if 10% convert, we're talking about 500 paying customers where we invested literally zero in ads. So it makes total economic sense. While we can do good for the community, we are building a brand. We have a lot of content and videos for citizens. So that's even without any login. We don't ask people for email or stuff like that. It's open on our website. They can go in. We have tons of material. And we don't just do it for the purpose of doing it. We actually put our heart and soul in it. So the videos are very, very good, including the ones that we will probably never make money out of. The citizens, we don't have a plan, not now or the near future, to monetize the citizen training that we have. It's just something that we feel that, as a company, we believe in.
What if someone wants to contribute as a community member?
We have that. Yeah, mm-hmm. We have people. So people translated our videos to different languages, and they just volunteered to do that. Mm-hmm. We have people that contributing in terms of when we create a video, if it's, for example, about a specific regulation, we have a huge community that is, following us, and they're willing to give us advice and, fix if we need to fix anything in the video. So we're getting feedback, whether it's from attorneys and other people. So the community is really helping a lot. We're doing joint content creation. So we recently did one around call centers. So we're joining different groups and we're working together with them. And again, everybody's enjoying it eventually.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And you also, I saw somewhere you talk about empathy and how it relates to, if you can, and I like that concept. I think, first of all, empathy is something that we're all lacking. So I would like to, if you don't mind, just explain what that means in the context of security awareness.
Sure. So look, I divide it to two. Empathy in terms of people, which I'll start off. And then I think also technology needs to have empathy, and I'll explain both. So, the obvious is instead of just throwing on people hate reading policy documents. They don't understand why they need to do that. They don't believe in it. They feel that they're actually being punished in many cases. Now, if you understand that and you embrace that, then you change your approach. It starts with the onboarding. Take 5 minutes, explain to the new hire why you're asking for that, how they can help, talk to them. If somebody has complaints, talk to them. You have to explain the why you're asking for people to do that. We, for example, created some policy documents, but instead of just a long, boring document, we made it sort of like a flip book. So you see, you cannot cover everything. And that goes back to this empathy, try to hit the main points, because it's better to have empathy, hit, the attention span that people have, make them learn something, than try to force them to learn everything. They may be compliant, but they don't remember anything, understand anything. And I think that's a huge thing, empathy. So it goes across all departments, right? Not just security, also with sales and marketing. Even when you generate leads, a lot of our documents are free. And when I mean free, I don't mean that you need to sign up, because the way I see this, it's not a fair contract or an agreement when you ask somebody to sign up to get a document, because you know what you're giving. You're giving your details and you're assuming you're going to be harassed, you're going to be, getting spam later, and you don't know the quality of the document you're getting. So if you want to have empathy, trust people, give them, build your brand. Later they will come back. So, have that empathy. In terms of, and that's, like I said, all around the security awareness projects, that's an hour discussion that I can have. Around technology, we made our videos, for example, 1 minute long. Again, we understand that people have a short attention span. Yes, the company can force people to sit down and watch, but if you want them to actually care and listen, you have to sort of align yourself also with them. I've heard a lot of people that say that, the root of the problem, that is people that don't have attention span, and what generation we are growing and all of that. But that's the reality. So are you fighting the generation and the reality, or you're trying to sort of fit in? So technology also needs to have that empathy in terms of content, in terms of usability, make it available on mobile. Look at the desired path and fit yourself into that desired path, and don't just try to force yourself.
Yeah, makes total sense now. With the COVID-19 hit and the budget cuts that are coming down the pipe, convincing management to invest in security awareness is something that is close to your heart. And you wrote an article about that. What were the kind of the highlights of those?
So in terms of convincing management, so, first of all, Wizer is free. So in terms of budgets and costs and all of that, I think that's, less of an issue. I think it's time and attention, which is more the issue. And I had another article that talks about how, cars, how brakes are basically, we'll talk about that later, security brakes and car brakes and security. But basically, you want to talk to management and align yourself with their goals. Now, when we, for example, give our kids knee pads when they skateboard, right? Or a helmet, basically what we're doing, we're enabling them, right? Nobody maybe loves putting helmets on and knee pads. You're not passionate about it, but you understand that if you want your kid to get better at riding the bike or doing tricks on the skateboard, they need those knee pads. So basically, security is an enabler for the company to grow. So if you explain that, and especially with now working from home, if you want to feel comfortable about working from home, and maybe even later keep that thing going, I think we're going to see that later continuing. I don't think we'll go back to normal. That's another discussion. But if you want to allow employees later to continuously work from home, you have to address this. So security awareness and security in general is an enabler. It's something that helps the company grow fast without crashing, basically. That's how I see this.
There's a question here. Wizer is free, but can consultant bundle it with the consulting services for free?
Well, I consult for free on LinkedIn, but we're not a consultancy company. We do get a lot of requests, and many times if ideas about videos and stuff, and we love them, and we create new videos based on what people ask. But we're a software company. We don't, but we have partners. We have a lot of partners that we work with that do exactly that. They do the consulting, plus use our training and so forth. So sorry for that, but I will always love to consult for free. just hit me up on LinkedIn or email me. And I love to, both young entrepreneurs and companies, both about security and entrepreneurship, both.
He was just asking about partnership. I guess that's just to be clear. We can take that offline, but Gabby will be happy to connect with you. I don't know what the go-to-market strategy if you work with partners or not.
Oh yeah, we do. We have partners and quite a few.
So another article you put down was specifically about the adversaries being marketers. You said that they're using Google Analytics to so maybe you can touch upon that, and then we can jump into what you've seen with the current situation with the pandemic. What are the changes and so on in the marketplace? That'd be great.
Yeah. So look, at the end of the day, cyber criminals or scammers, think like marketers. They are trying to reach as many people as possible. They're in the sales process, right? They have a funnel. They have to fill that funnel. So it starts with generating leads. Where do you generate leads? Like any marketer, you put it on social media, you send emails out, you even do ads, paid ads. You create YouTubes. Everything goes. Anything that marketing teams do, scammers do. They have a product. The product is scamming you, and they have to market it. And they just use the same techniques. And by the way, many times the same software, CRM and all of that. And they have an advantage. Their advantage is that they can offer things that are just irrational. Like a normal business cannot offer this type of discount, but a scammer can. So they actually have their upper hand. They're more successful in many times than marketers. They have, they can just do more with lower budgets because they are stealing those emails. They can basically they can do so much things that marketers cannot do, and that's why we see them everywhere. And it also attaches to the fact that a lot of people say, why me? Why would anyone hack me? Why would anyone sell to you? Nobody's trying. When you watch a TV commercial, you're not targeted. You specifically, we want to sell to you. They're selling to an audience. Scammers are selling their scams to a huge audience. They're selling they have 50 million emails that are going to hit anyone. Then whoever is captured in their funnel, in their forms, get into a funnel, and then it goes to a cubicle. And then there's a person calling them and continuing that sales process and qualifying them. So for example, I wrote about it as well, is sometimes we look at some of those scam emails and we see that they have full of grammar mistakes, and we're like, who the hell would respond to this? And this is actually a qualification process, because the last thing scammers want is junk leads. What is a junk lead for them? A lead that comes in and they will never bite that bait. They will eventually figure out this is scam. So how do you find gullible people? You put spelling mistakes. If they didn't notice that, they have a higher chance growing through this funnel. And eventually, so that's why I say never respond to them, because when you respond to them, now you're automatically directed to a salesperson and they will just continue and they're going to nurture you because they know there's a chance that you will convert. So once you understand that, then it's easier to also spot those scam emails, because we have a good sense of spotting a sales email, somebody's trying to sell us something. It's hardly no difference, that one and the scam one. Just the scam is just much more attractive. Like, that's a good deal. But if it's such a good deal, then it's probably not, right?
Yeah, the idea is to ask another question. I heard that before, that even the Russians, for example, are specifically using Nigeria just to see. It's like a filter. If you're so gullible that you think the Nigerian prince will offer you that money, then you're a good target. So how do you create the content? Do you create content depending on maybe new types of scams are coming down the pipe? Like, how do you make sure that your content is fresh and relevant?
Just like scammers or like marketers, I follow the trends, right? Use the same techniques. I see the scams that are happening. I'm tied into, I go to Reddit, to LinkedIn, to, different resources. I look at Google Trends. I talk to the community. And so beyond the basic that we have, we have to cover like HIPAA, GDPR, basic security awareness. The new content that we're creating and refreshing all the time is based on things that are just happening now. So for example, now we have this COVID-19, and the things that are trending right now. So we have a lot of people that unfortunately lost their jobs, right? So we're going to see a lot of job scams. So that's something that we recently did. And job scams, I'll elaborate a little bit for the audience because it's a big one. Basically, it's one of the easiest ways to steal an identity. You're looking for a job. You're now at home. You see in a website like Indeed or something similar, a job working from home. You apply. You get even interviewed. You talk to those. You exchange emails. You apply. You get the job. You're happy. Now you fill up a form with everything, with your social security number, with your bank information, with all the details that cyber criminals need, and you hand it out to those cyber criminals. So first of all, your identity was totally stolen. Second, they continue. They will send you a check to buy equipment. So if you need a new laptop because you're working from home, right? You're not working from an office. So you get that check, $2,000, whatever it is, you deposit it in the bank. But a lot of people don't know there's a gap between the time. The money will show up the day after, but it will, if it's not good, it can bounce even after like 10 days or 30 days even. But between now and then, you go ahead and use your credit card to buy a computer from an approved vendor that they supplied you. So not only your identity was stolen, now you also lost money because the check will bounce. You use your credit card. You cannot dispute it because you used it. It's not like it was stolen, and you lost money. So that's just one example of something that is very much relevant that we're doing. Other than that, there are things like Zoom scams, just as basic as people register Zoom domains that look like Zoom, and they send emails for join our Zoom, our yoga class in this Zoom, and you download that Zoom app, which is totally not Zoom app, and you infect your computer. So many scams that are happening. Unfortunately, it's not hard to find them. So creating content, I'm being honest, it's just so easy today.
What was the impact, aside from being, sheltered in place for you and the family, when you run the business, interacting with customers, what do you have an advice and maybe like kind of parting words in a positive manner to what you experience and how you're handling it?
So if we were looking, there's a lot of positive things, and it's funny as it may seem, but first of all, the world is united around one thing. This COVID-19, everybody's talking about it, and you can see that people understand each other wherever they are, Italy, US. Unfortunately, we all have to deal with this. So, you can see some beautiful things coming out of this, some not, but, a lot of unity. Also in terms of family, right? Like you spend time with your kids. Yes, it can drive you crazy, but it's, it's fun hanging out with your kids and with the family, and that's on the positive side. I think the world will not return to the way it used to. We will have a new, they talk about a new normal, but I would say a new abnormal. Abnormal will be normal. I think that if you look at, right now, when people wanted to work from home, they had to say, hey, we're gonna work from home tomorrow. I think in the future, if you wanna work from the office, you'll have to let people that you're coming in. I think the default will be that people work from home. I think companies will scale down their offices. It will be like a hot desk, sort of like, WeWork model, but, companies will manage it themselves. If you want to come in, you have to let us know. Some people will probably come in every day. Some people will come maybe once or twice. Some will stay at home. I think people will have much more opportunities in terms of jobs because you can work anywhere now. So in terms of lifestyle, people may leave the city and go to the suburbs, maybe, I don't know, just because you don't need to be close to work and you're not going to hit traffic if you work from home. People won't need to relocate. So this is going to be very interesting. I'm really curious to how things will evolve in this space. I think it will change the entire market, real estate, lifestyle. There's going to be a lot of debate around that. Also, in terms of education, I think we'll see a lot of change around that as well. How people, do they go to college or do they work? Do they study from home, and so forth.
So aren't you happy that you didn't stick around with the fashion app? I mean, it seems like fashion is now on the chopping block for it, since people don't go anywhere. And cybersecurity is more, I guess, is more of a necessity.
I'm not sure, you still need to dress up at least a half part for your Zoom meetings, right?
Maybe a new line of like house robes, would do quite well right now.
Or masks, I think, it's a big market. Yeah, things are changing. By the way, there's a lot of fraud around that as well. Fast fashion. That's like another whole topic around that.
Well, what we can do is we can maybe offer, for the people that are, part of this, I'll share the website and where you sign up and download, and then I'm looking forward for all of it to be over, and then hopefully you can come to New York City and attend one of the live events, and meet some of the folks that are part of the group. So again, thank you very much for taking the time to chat with us, and I love the coming back to the new abnormal. I think that's something that I'll definitely use that and coin that phrase. Give you credit, of course. But anyway, thank you very much. Much appreciated, Gabby.
Thank you very much. I really enjoyed it. Thank you all for attending.